First of all, I'll be disinfecting the area I want to work with. Hi people, welcome to how I made pH buffing solution. So first, I'm wiping off the area I disinfected, which I did using the isopropyl alcohol. So the first buffing solution I'm making is a citric acid buffer solution, which reduces the pH of your skincare product. So for this, I'm using citric acid and distilled water. Distilled water, people, that is what I'm using. Any other water won't give you what you need. So I'm doing 50% citric acid and 50% distilled water, which I converted to 100-gram formula, which gives me 50 gram of citric acid and 50 gram of distilled water. So here I'm measuring out my distilled water. I actually went above 50 grams initially, then off camera I reduced it until it got to exactly 50 grams. So next I'm measuring out my citric acid directly into the heat safe container and 50 grams of citric acid into a beaker. So what I noticed is that the citric acid took a whole lot of time to dissolve. So you're going to require a lot of patience to get this done. For me, what I did is after measuring this, I moved on to the sodium hydroxide buffing solution, which raises pH. So you can see I've placed the citric acid into the distilled water, and you can see it is still clumped up. I'm just giving it a bit of mix. You can see the citric acid below. So I just set it aside and then moved to the second. Kindly subscribe, yes, quickly. So I moved to the sodium hydroxide buffing solution. What this does is to raise the pH. So for this I used a 50-gram batch, which goes as 10% sodium hydroxide and 90% water. So for a 50-gram batch, it's translated into 45 grams of distilled water and 5 grams of sodium hydroxide. So I'm just measuring out my distilled water. You can see I'm taking out the extra drops until we get to exactly 45 grams for this distilled water. The next thing I'm doing is to weigh out the sodium hydroxide. You can see my sodium hydroxide here. So we're just going to weigh out exactly 5 grams of sodium hydroxide. Kindly note that when you measure or weigh your sodium hydroxide into your beaker, it is going to get hot. Do not be confused, do not fret, do not get worried about it. This is a normal reaction of sodium hydroxide in distilled water. It is going to get hot, which is the reason why you need a container that is heat safe. So after measuring it out, while you're stirring it, giving it a bit of mix, you're just going to still use the same time and allow it to cool. So you can see it is still cloudy, which means that the sodium hydroxide has not fully dissolved in the distilled water. At this point, my citric acid buffing solution to see if it has fully dissolved. As you can see, it has not dissolved yet. I told you that this is going to take quite some time for the citric acid to dissolve in the distilled water. So I'm giving it another mix. I'm taking out all the citric acid in the corners of the beaker, all the citric acid that's kind of hiding. I'm just stirring it and mixing it some more so that it can dissolve easily. So that's exactly what I'm doing with the citric acid buffing solution. Remember that the citric acid buffing solution reduces pH, while the sodium hydroxide buffing. So we are back to the sodium hydroxide buffing solution. You can see it is now clear. Sodium hydroxide mixes way faster than the citric acid buffing solution, so this one takes less time. This is the citric acid buffing solution. You can tell the difference because the items I'm using to stir them, they are quite different. The other one, I used a plastic spoon for the sodium hydroxide buffing solution, and for the citric acid, the stirrer is quite different. So I'm just gonna measure the sodium hydroxide buffing solution into a transparent container so that I can monitor it. So you can see I'm just setting it aside. I'm just weighing it out. Sodium hydroxide buffing solution is quite done. It is clear now, means it has been fully dissolved in the water. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cover it and then label the container. This is just 50 grams. So I'm going to be using this in balancing the pH of my skincare formulations, as you can see subsequently in this video. So I'm labeling it, I'm writing the date just for me to know when I made it, and then for me to know when I need to throw it out if it stays too long. But I don't think this is going to stay too long with me because it's a very small quantity. I'm going to be using it subsequently. So here I'm labeling the container for the citric acid buffing solution. Please ignore the paper I used. I just want to know what I did. So this is the citric acid buffing solution, guys. It took a whole lot of time than this. It's not as fast or as quick as this. So if you try making your own and it does not dissolve immediately, do not get worried at all, which is why I'm emphasizing that the citric acid took a whole longer time, a lot of time, for it to get to this point of being a clear solution. So this is 100 grams. Anyway, I could not find a clear container. I'm supposed to use a clear container to store this so that I can monitor my solution and see if any changes occur. So these are the final solutions. So here I'm going to be balancing the pH of the basic simple face wash I made. So I just want you to see what I did, which is why I'm making this video. So the first thing you need to do is to rinse your pH meter in clear distilled water. Do not skip this step. I'm using a very tiny beaker, 2 tiny beakers, so that I can be able to immerse my pH meter up to the point where the electrode is. At this point, I think I should leave a marker there. So here I cleaned it with distilled water until you can see it's at 6.2, which is where I configured my pH meter to be. So I just weighed a bit of the face wash in this small beaker I'm using. I placed the pH meter there and you can see this is 8.5. 8.5 is really too high. So what am I going to do? I'm going to use, so because it's 8.5, I'm going to be using the citric acid buffing solution to reduce it. So for this video, I intentionally added more than 1 drop. I'm supposed to just go with 1 drop of citric acid, but I intentionally went for more than 1 drop so that I can reduce it drastically and then still need the sodium hydroxide to bring it down. I just wanted you to see the difference. I just wanted you to see what each pH adjusting solution does. Then the next thing you need to do is to cleanse your pH meter very well with distilled water. Use as much distilled water as possible, because for this is a product that lathers. This is a product that has some form of foam. So you can see that I'm going to need a lot of distilled water to clean my pH meter, which is what I did. I did some of it off camera, and then now I'm doing it here again so that you can see it is back to the 6 point something. Kindly subscribe, please. So I'm taking it back to the face wash, which I'm trying to balance the pH. Now you can see what the pH is going to give after placing this for a little bit of time. This is 3.5. 3.5 is rather too low, which is what I explained. I intentionally made it too low so that I can still have a need. So I made it too low so that I can show you how I use the sodium hydroxide pH adjusting solution as well. So this is me sending back the solution, the face wash, so that I can give it a bit of mix and add the sodium hydroxide. So for this, I'm just adding a few drops because I do not want it to be too high. So I'm just adding a few drops of the sodium hydroxide buffing solution to raise the pH of the face wash. So after adding a few drops, you give it a bit of mix. You set it aside for 1 full minute so that everything is going to normalize and mix very, very well. So after this, we do the same process. We bring out some in the small beaker so that the pH meter can get in it. Now that's a bit of clump from my xanthan gum. Yes, so here I have rinsed my pH meter thoroughly. You can see it's at the range of 6 points again. So I just did the rest of it off camera, added a few drops again. It got a bit higher. I went through the process again basically. Then I'm back to checking the pH again. I have rinsed my pH meter, is back to 6.2 again. I just need you to know that sometimes it is not just one single step to get the right pH for a product. Is just not one single step sometimes. So I'm back to checking it again, and now we can see we are at 5.5, 5.6, exactly 5.5. That's what we got, which is a good pH. That's how we adjust pH. Thanks for watching.